Your console is one of about 20 in a windowless room in Houston. In 4 minutes, a voice from another world is going to report a number that nobody in this building expected to hear today. Everyone in the room will turn to you. You will have less time to answer than it takes to read this sentence. The wrong answer kills 3 men, or ends the only chance America gets this decade. You are 26 years old. You are the guidance officer. On the loop, nobody uses your name. They call you Guido. Your job is the spacecraft's navigation and its computer. Not the engines, not the medical readouts, not the radios. The question of whether the machine flying 2 men down to the surface of the moon still knows where it is and still knows what it's doing. The room around you is younger than anyone watching on television would believe. The average age of the people at these consoles is about 27. Your flight director, Gene Kranz, is 35 and is the closest thing this room has to an old man. Behind you, in a back room nobody televises, sits a 24-year-old named Jack Garman with a handwritten sheet of paper in front of him. On it is a list of every error code the onboard computer can produce and what each one actually means. He made that list because a few weeks ago in a training run, this team met an alarm they didn't understand and made the wrong call. Afterwards, somebody said, "Never again," so a kid wrote it all out by hand. Nobody expects to use it. That is not why you make a list. There is a clock on all of this that nobody in the room needs reminding of. 8 years ago, a president stood in front of Congress and committed this country to putting a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth before the decade was out. It is July of 1969. There are 5 months left in the decade. Everyone at every console in this room has spent most of their adult life inside that sentence. The computer aboard the lunar module holds less memory than a single photograph on the phone in your pocket. Nobody in this room fully understands everything it does. That is not incompetence. It is the nature of the thing. It was written by a team in Massachusetts, and the people who fly it and the people who built it are not the same people. The burn begins. 12.5 minutes from here to the surface, and no way to stop halfway. For the first minutes, everything is nominal. The numbers on your screen and the numbers coming from 250,000 miles away agree with each other, which is the entire substance of your job. 2 sets of numbers, agreeing. Then Armstrong's voice comes down, flat and unhurried in the way that men who fly experimental aircraft are trained to be. Program alarm. It's a 1202. Every head in the room turns toward your console. Here is what you have. You have a number you have seen perhaps once, weeks ago, in a simulation. You have a spacecraft descending at speed toward a surface no human being has ever touched. You have 2 men inside it who cannot see what you can see. You have a flight director about to ask you a one-word question, and you have Garmin's voice in your ear from the back room, fast, reading off his own handwriting. It's an executive overflow. It's fine as long as it doesn't keep repeating. That is the whole of it. That is everything anyone in this building knows about the number currently on Neil Armstrong's display. Not why it is happening. Not whether it will happen again. One sentence from a 24-year-old with a biro list. Kranz asks for the call. You are 26 years old, and you have been at this console for less than 2 years, and the correct answer is not written on any sheet of paper in front of you. It is an inference. It is a judgment about whether a machine's designers were as good as you think they were. You say, go. The word goes to the capsule communicator, Charlie Duke, and out through 250,000 miles of nothing to a man standing at the controls of a landing craft. Duke responds, "We're go on that alarm." The alarm returns. Then it returns again. Then again is a 1201, a different number, the same underlying thing, and Garmin's one condition was that it must not become continuous. It is becoming continuous. Each time, the room turns to you. Each time, you say go. There is no point in the descent where saying it a second time is easier than saying it the first, and then a second problem starts, and it does not take turns with the first one. Armstrong can see the landing site the machine has chosen, and it is a crater rimmed with boulders the size of cars. So he does the thing no software can do, takes the controls himself and flies manually, looking out of a window, hunting for somewhere flat, which costs fuel 60 seconds. That is not time until landing. That is time until there is not enough propellant left to abort, and the choice gets taken away from everybody. The alarm fires again over the top of the call-out. Nobody has time to be frightened of it now. That is the strange mercy of the last minute. The computer screaming has become the least of it. You have gone from being the most important man in the room to a spectator in 90 seconds because the situation has arrived at the one configuration nobody at these consoles can help with: a man, a window, and a hand on a controller. 250,000 miles away with a radio delay that makes any advice arrive after it would have mattered. 30 seconds. Another alarm, somebody's pen has stopped moving. You notice that, and then you notice you have noticed it, which is what your mind is doing instead of anything useful. Nobody in the room speaks. Your part is finished, the computer is behaving, the guidance is good, there is nothing further that Guido can contribute to the next 20 seconds of human history. You sit in a chair and you listen to a man you have never met fly a spacecraft on his own eyes and his own hands. Aldrin calls out, "Contact light." A probe hanging beneath a footpad has touched lunar dust. The engine shuts down. 240,000 miles away, in a windowless room in Texas, 20 men stop breathing at the same time. "Houston, Tranquility Base here," Armstrong says. "The Eagle has landed." Duke's reply is not in any procedure, and not in any script, and it is the most human sentence anybody transmits that day. "You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot." Roughly 25 seconds of usable fuel remain in the descent stage. Here's what the alarm actually was, and none of you will know it for hours. A radar nobody needed was feeding the computer data it hadn't asked for, eating a share of every processing cycle. The machine was being handed more work than it could finish, and instead of freezing, it restarted, threw away whatever mattered least, and kept flying the descent. It did that because years earlier, a software team at MIT led by a young woman named Margaret Hamilton insisted it be built to survive being overwhelmed. She had to argue for it. It was considered unnecessary. Astronauts, it was said, would not make mistakes. So when you said go, you were not guessing. You were trusting a stranger's judgment, made years before, in a room you had never been in. You did not build the rocket, you did not fly it, you did not walk on anything. You sat in a chair in a room with no windows, and you decided, in less time than it takes to say the word, to trust the work of people you had never met. That is what the landing was. Not a giant leap. A room full of people, most of them under 30, being right about each other. You are 26 years old,